Hello everyone, today I want to show you how to make these Wirework Goddess Macrame bracelets, and this is what they look like. So these are just two examples that I've made. This one I'm going to show you how to do in the tutorial, and this one is a little bit different. Now it's the same basic technique, and obviously you can see I've used different beads and wire, but with this one I just used bare regular wire, and then this one you can see that I've actually used twisted wire. So it gives a completely different effect to it. It gives a bit more kind of texture and sparkle to it, I think. But obviously it's completely up to you how you want to do it. All I've done in this one is replaced the wire that I'm using as my working wire with twisted wire. And I used 2 lengths of 0.4mm and twisted that together. Instead of this, I've used 0.8mm to do my macrame. So it's completely up to you how you want to do that. I just wanted to show you 2 different effects here that you could get. So if you want to learn how to make these, then keep watching. So these are the things that we'll need. Now first off, we'll need a wire here. Now this is a 0.8mm and it's a regular round wire, and I'm just using a copper wire because I thought that would go nicely as a nice contrast to the beads here. And the beads that I'm using are just some multicolored agate, and these are 6mm faceted rounds. And then finally I've also got my extended chain clasp and some jump rings to finish off the bracelet. So let's get it all together and let's get started. So the lengths of wire we'll need is first off 2 lengths here of about 40 centimeters each. And these are going to be the holding wires that are going to have all the beads onto them. And then also we'll need 1 long length of wire of about 2 meters. So I've then taken both of my shorter lengths of wire there, attached them to my macrame board, just put them in the same slot there. And then once you have those ready, we need to then also get a long length of wire. And I'm going to get one end, put that underneath the 2 holding wires there, so it's coming underneath. Then kind of pull it through, because we need to find the middle of this. So I get both ends and then just put them together. And then as I'm working my way down towards the middle, I know this is going to be roughly the middle of my wire there. And then I can keep hold of that, and then we just need to attach this long length of wire to the 2 holding wires there. So we just want to do that by taking the left length on the left side of the 2 holding wires over the 2 holding wires there, and then we take the right one over that, take the end of it underneath everything in the middle and up through the loop. So it's just a regular square knot like you would do with cord, we're just working with wire instead. And it's just the first one here that we're attaching that's a little bit fiddly, because obviously we're working with long lengths of wire, and also it's all loose for now. But once we get this in place, it gets much easier. Tighten that, just like that. Then I'm going to take the other side, the wire from the right there, put that over because we need to complete the square knot. We only made half now. And then take the left one over that, underneath everything in the middle and up through the loop. And then pull them all the way so we can see we get this knot forming, and then pull it tight. It's going to sit right underneath the previous one. And now this is one full square knot. So you just want to do about 3 or 4 of these, depending how much space you want before we start adding in the beads. So now that I made those 4 square knots right at the beginning, that's just going to lay right at the back of the wrist there. Then now we can start adding in the beads, but I just want to get my wires in place first. We have them coming out from that very last knot. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my left one first. I'm going to bring that underneath the 2 holding wires in the middle there, and just all the way to the other side. I just like to do this because it kind of puts the wires in a bit better position to then start adding in the beads. And then I'm just going to pull it all the way tight and a bit upwards there, so it just comes out towards the other side. I'm going to do the same with the right one. I'm going to bring that underneath the one we just put under and underneath the 2 holding wires. Pull it all the way to the opposite side and then pull it tight, just like that. So now we have those 2 in place. What we can do now is then release our 2 holding wires and start adding on our beads. So I just release them here from the board, and then I just want to separate them a little bit from the top where they're coming out from the knot. It's just so we can fit a bit of a bead up there to begin with. And then you just want to start adding on beads to both of these. How many you put on is really up to you. It depends how large you want your bracelet to be. But I would say put an even amount on both of them. So it doesn't matter how many, as long as you put the same amount on both of them. So I now added on all my beads here. And then on the bottom, I just put my 2 wires in separate slots right next to each other, just to separate them out a little bit, while we then have the bead section that we're working on here. So what we need to do now is start wrapping our wire around. Now again, it doesn't really matter what side you start with, but what I'm going to do is have this one bead put all the way towards the top there, and then they're kind of going to be off from each other. So even though we have the same amount on both sides, they're just going to be off, and then the bottom is going to be the other side that's going to finish off compared to the one that started off. So I'm just going to start with the wire that's coming towards the left here. So I'm going to grab that, and we need to start wrapping this around basically. So it's coming underneath and towards the left side. So as I'm starting to wrap this around, we need to first of all just catch that very first bead. So it's coming underneath that first bead, and then up in between the first and the second one there, on the outside still, and then wrap around at an angle so it comes below the first bead on the other side, just like that, to achieve that zigzag pattern. And then we need to have this wire come all the way underneath the 2 holding wires with all the beads on. Pull it all the way through, and then we just need to have this come around the back, still below the first one on this side, but then coming up below the next one on the opposite side. So just take a bit of time, make sure you get this wire, when you're wrapping it around here, sat in this correct place, and it's going to look nice and even throughout. So we're going to bring it up then underneath the second wire, the second bead, sorry, on the first side, so on the left side here, come back down at an angle again, below the second bead on the right side, and then again we need to bring it underneath the 2 wires with all the beads, bring it all the way under, and then pull it up so it comes underneath. So if I push those down, it's going to come underneath here, these 2 beads, to then again come up underneath the next bead on the opposite side. And if we then push them back up, and it's really about you find the rhythm that's best for you, how to work with it. But you just keep doing this, wrapping this around all the way down, doing this pattern at an angle. So then once you kept wrapping this wire around and around in that pattern, reaching all the way to the bottom where you've done it behind your last bead there, then what we need to do is go back to the top and then start again, but using the other wire here, so the one coming from the other side. And this one is coming from the back out to the right. So for this we need to come across the front and just first off wrap in front and below that very first bead. So I'm going just below that, basic caging that first one in completely, like that. And then we need to again take this one underneath the whole thing, pull your wire all the way through, so that when we pull it to the other side, it's going to sit below that first bead and then come up below the first bead on the other side there, and then bring it up and across below the second on the first, so on the left side. So basically this way we're also wrapping around but at an angle, but it's going the opposite direction. And we're basically connecting almost the points together, so we're getting these triangles instead. And again, go underneath all the way, and then make sure that this wraps just underneath that second bead and comes up underneath the second bead on the right side. So just like that, and then around the front again, and keep wrapping around like this all the way towards the bottom. So wrap this all the way down as well to the bottom until I come around the front and then behind the very last bead there as well. So now what we need to do is finish off the end, and to make that the same as the other end, we need to go straight into making some square knots here. So I'm going to start with my left one, bring that over, take my right one over that and underneath everything in the middle, and tighten that all the way up. So the first one you can maybe just need to hold that with your finger when you're tightening it, And then we need to make the other half of the square knot as well. So bring that over, take the other one over that, underneath everything in the middle, and then tighten that to make the other half of the square knot. Just like that. And you want to make the same amount here as you did right at the beginning. So once you've then completed the square knots here in this end, doing the same amount as the other end, then what we need to do is finish off these ends of our wire. Now, we need to finish off both ends obviously, but on this end we don't have the excess wire, we only have the holding ones running through the whole bracelet. So on this one we just have to do these ones as well. So what you'll find, if you look at your very last knot, you'll find that your wire is kind of naturally going towards a certain direction, and you'll see on your knot there you have little loops going over on this side, and then on the other side, flip it around, it goes over on the back. So we want to just have a look at that because we need to then take this wire in the direction that is the most best to get the least bulk on the end of your bracelet. So this one I need to bring around so it doesn't go above the loop but the opposite way. And I'm just going to wrap this around just once or twice because I don't want to create too much bulk down here and too far a distance up. So that's plenty because we made loads of knots with it as well, so it's not going to come undone. And then I'm going to go in, cut off the excess. Then every time I cut off my wire as well, I just take my chain nose pliers and I want to squeeze down that very end so it gets tugged in. And then run your finger over it and see if you can feel it. If you can't feel it, then that's fine. And then we have the other one here, so we can just flip it around, do the same thing, wrap it in the same direction as the previous one, and just go around your holding wires there, again just once or twice. Then when you feel that that's enough, cut this one off as well. Just like that. And same thing, just make sure to squeeze down the end. Just like that. So now what we have left are two holding wires that's running through the whole bracelet. So I want to use these now to also create my loops at the end so we can attach the clasp. And the first thing I want to do here is then get rid of one of the wires because we have two, but I only want to use one of them to make my loop with. So it's the same principle. I just take, you can have a look if you have one that's shorter than the other one, you just take that one first. I take the one, kind of bend it outward, so it's just coming out at an angle straight from where you've done your last wraps. Then I'm going to just bring it around the other holding wire, and same principle, wrap it around once or twice. It's nice and tight there until you're happy with that. Cut off the excess and also just make sure to tuck that end in to make it nice and comfortable to wear, and also so it's not going to catch on anything. So that's that end. We now have just that one left, and you want to do the same thing on the other end as well. But then also now what we can do here is make our actual loop. So I'm just going to take my flat nose or chain nose, I'm going to go up a little bit above where I've done my last wraps. So I just want to leave a little bit of space of bare wire there, just a few millimeters. Make a bend in your wire so it comes out to the side like that, an angle. Then you want to grab either some round nose. I'm going to be using some 6-step bell making pliers here, so I make sure that both loops and both ends are the same, exact same size, but you can use round nose pliers. Place that right above your angle, take it back around the pliers and back around to the front again. So when you're looking at it, you have a complete circle, just like that. And then I grab hold of that circle with my flat nose or chain nose. Then I start wrapping this tail around, filling in that little space that we left just before we made the loop, to basically make this into a wrap loop. So that's the most secure way that you can do it, so it's not going to come undone. And then once you've filled in that space, you can again cut off the excess. You can also leave this length if you want to. You can do like a swirl to make a nice decorative piece to it, or cover up any of this wrapping that you've done. That's completely up to you. And just push that down. So you've now got a loop on this end, and you want to do the exact same thing on the other end. So we end up with a loop on each end there. When you've then made your loops on both ends and then also attached a clasp and extended chain, if that's what you want to use, you can use whatever kind of clasp you want to, obviously. All that's left to do now is shape the bracelet so we can wear it. Now you can either take this and bend it around something, that's the size and shape that you want, or you can just go in and use your fingers here, gently, a bit at a time, put some curves in. So I just start from one end, or from the middle, and work my way across, back and forth, to give it them gentle, nice curves, and then it gradually gets more towards the right shape. Now I don't recommend just going in one place and making a big bend. You need to be gradual about it, so you can end up with the right shape and not get it misshapen. And I personally prefer an oval shape. I think it tends to sit better on the wrist, but again, that's completely up to you. And then once we're getting there, you can then obviously use your clasp to secure your bracelet, and there you have your finished bracelet, and it looks like that. So it gives a really nice effect. Obviously whatever beads and wire you choose to use can do completely different looks, but it gives a really nice effect there with the zigzag in between, and then your macrame around the back. So it should also be pretty comfortable to wear. So that's how you make this bracelet. A pretty simple macrame technique, just using wire. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you very much for watching. Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make this multi-knot double row wirework macrame bracelet. And this is what it looks like. So this is what mine looks like with the materials that I've used. So you have 2 rows here going down with beads and then multiple knots in between to give quite a nice separated effect there. So if you want to learn how to make this, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to be using. Now first off here, the wire that I've got is a